Hello and welcome. My name's Ashley. I'll be hosting the session today, and the topic we will be talking about is managing work analysis. So welcome to this UniCourse video. So this session aims to introduce the concept of work analysis, considering how data can be used to inform of evidence-based decision making use of numerical data that covers all aspects of business to make informed decisions is so essential today. It's so important, and it can make a difference between a company being a success and a company not being a success. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, this session is loosely based around Unit 5.1.5, but it also will allow you to consider how you can, analyze information to make better decisions as a leader and a manager. So we're going to talk here now about analysing resources and capabilities. Now, the resources of an organisation are those assets that deliver added value. The capabilities of an organisation are those management skills, routines, and leadership that deploy, share, and generate value for the organisations. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to think about, thinking back to Richard Lynch, he informed in his book, Strategic Management, that analysing the resources and capabilities of an organisation has two purposes. So firstly, to explore and enhance the competitive advantages of the organisation's resources, and then to identify where value is added to the organisation as well. So let's have a look at that in a bit more detail. So I'm going to just start by, looking at resources in a little bit more detail and giving you some definitions here. So tangible resources are the physical resources of the organisation that create added value. And an example here would be the location of your organisation, say like a fast food restaurant, or the equipment in a factory. And then intangible resources, they have no physical presence, but are still, essential and fundamental to the benefits of the organisation. And an example here would be, software systems, technology, the brand name is a big one as well. So an example could be, Mars chocolate bar. Mars is a really big brand in chocolate, in the chocolate industry. And because that brand is, such a valuable resource, they could go into the ice cream industry, start selling Mars ice creams, and they did really, really well because that brand was recognised. And then, looking at the operational capabilities, you're thinking here about the people, the leadership, the fundamental structure of the organisation. So having tangible and intangible resources, it's not enough. The organisation must be able to deploy and share these resources, link the various parts of the organisation together, and then coordinate the many activities effectively across the organisation. So, an example would be a good management team in an organisation utilises resources. So going back to resource management, live class that I did a while ago, having the right people at the right time in the right place, helps you to become more efficient, more effective. And, efficiency is a case of attaining maximum productivity with minimum effort. Effectiveness is the extent to which something successfully provides the desired result. So bearing in that in mind, managing work analysis, it's about efficiency, it's about effectiveness, and it's about being aware of how you can become more efficient and effective by managing that work. So what I want you to look at here and consider is I've created a bit of a diagram here to consider 5 questions, and considering these will help you to be able to analyze the resources and capabilities of an organization. So think about what resources add value, and if they don't, are they necessary? And you can think back to theoretical models like, the Kaizen model and the lean, to minimize waste and to become more efficient. But the questions you need to be asking is, okay, what are the resource and the capabilities of an organization? What are they? And in a strategic meeting, in an operational meeting, even in a departmental meeting, you can ask yourself, you can ask your team these questions. Why do we have them at all? So if, for example, you're using a resource that's costing your company a lot of money, but you're not really getting added value from that resource being there, do you really need it? Why are the resources and capabilities important in strategy? Now, if you're using a specific resource just because a competitor's using it, is it making your industry or your organization more efficient? Or are you just using it because somebody else is using it and you want to keep with the times? As I've seen that happen a lot of times, people paying a lot of money, for example, for software, for Gantt charts or project management tools and techniques, when the project wasn't really that big within their organization. They didn't really necessarily need to be paying that outlay for that, for that technology, but they just felt like they needed to have it to stay with the times. So you need to be able to, when you're thinking about work analysis for middle managers, you need to think about including continuous monitoring of the organizational goals and the workforce's ability to achieve them. So there might be other questions that you might want to ask, such as, are we working efficiently and effectively? Should training, coaching, or mentoring be adopted? Are we adapting to continuous improvement methodology, going back to Kaizen, going back to the lean methodology? And if you want to learn a little bit more about Kaizen or lean, you can have a look at one of our past live classes on organizational, on managing organizational problems and making decisions within our playlist on YouTube. So let's think about now how, once we've done some, an analysis of the current situation, we need to consider decision types, decision levels, and consider also, is there a point in having discussions about resources and capabilities if decisions can't be made, or if there isn't an authoritarian, or somebody in charge to make that final decision? You don't want to waste time with saying, right, we've done all of this work to work out that we're not as efficient and effective, but this can happen if we change this and we change that. But then if the change can't be implemented within the organization because of the level of authority to make that decision within that department, then you need to really consider then what's the point. So decision types need to be considered. Now I've outlined 5 different decision types within this particular session today, but decisions are made daily, weekly, monthly, annually, within an organization, and often strategic decisions are made every 3 to 5 years. Depends on what the vision is, and if you achieve the vision early, it might be more often than that. But there are, however, different levels of decisions. So operational or transactional are usually done by first line managers, junior managers, or operatives. And these decisions will affect the department's day-to-day or immediate running of the organisation. Some examples are daily risk assessments, staff rotas or tasks or delegation, training and monitoring, So the required information for these decisions is usually precise and related to policy. Then, decided that, then policies are decided by, senior managers. It's not usually based on financial data, these type of decisions. Tactical decisions are usually made by the middle managers, or there could be supervisors, or it could be departmental heads, even depending on the organizational structure, and they focus on departmental or medium-term operations of the organization. So usually approval needs to go from above. These decisions are often made periodically, monthly, quarterly, depending on your strategy, really. And middle managers will focus on short range, covering planning cycles over maybe a year or so. And they require information primarily of a historical nature. So examples would be, customer records or financial records, and generally annually, they could be recorded annually. Some examples could be sales targets that are generated, marketing budgets that are created from, the last year's financial information, or budgets for HR, training, development, things like that. So, these type of decision types can be programmed or non-programmed. They might just happen because incrementally, which is non-programmed, or more of a radical change or decision that needs to be made because of, I don't know, maybe like an external influence or impact on the company, such as like a change in the law, for example. So breaking that down a little bit further, slowing it down a little bit further, consider the information that's required for effective decision making. So for effective decisions to be made regarding actions and strategies, the decision maker would be required to know where the organisation is, where it expects to be in the future, or the expected outcomes of the decisions. So an example can be seen, within this table. So thinking about asking the question, where are we now? And that's a big part of strategy. It is a big part of strategy to be able to find your current stance and where about you are now, and then being able to consider, but where do we want to be in the future? Now, it's great, having plans for the future, but giving yourself too many plans for the future can be, overwhelming for an organisation. So it's important to be able to consider at an operational level, a tactical level, and a strategic level, and that analysing the current stance, or where you want to be in the future, done at different times. So the strategic level might be every 3 years, the tactical level might be every year, and then the operational level might be done every month or every quarter. So breaking it down into sections is probably the easiest way to be able to do this. So I just want to, before I go on to giving you a bit more details on work analysis techniques and models, I just want to clearly define what is meant by efficiency and effectiveness. And I have just touched on that, but it can often be used interchangeably, and it doesn't mean the same thing. So it's important to be able to distinguish the difference between these three. And the Cambridge Dictionary defines efficiency as the condition or fact of producing the results you want without waste, or a particular way in which it is done. And efficiency can be seen as to do things perfect. Effectiveness is the ability to be successful and produce the intended results. Or you could think about it as effectiveness is to do the perfect things. And productivity can be defined as the rate at which a country, company, etc., produces goods or services, usually judged in relation to the number of people at the time necessarily to produce them. So the ability to produce the maximum output with limited resources is known as efficiency. The level of the nearness to the actual result within the planned result is effectiveness. So making sure that you're clear on that, and within this assignment particularly, I do think it's really important to distinguish and define the difference between the two. So now let's have a little look at the work analysis techniques, okay? So a range of methods, techniques can allow for greater effectiveness, efficiency within the workplace. And I'm just going to talk about a couple here. So the competency modelling technique can be used throughout the organisation for succession planning, to sort of manage workforce planning as well, to shape the culture for professional development, to review the talent pool, strategy and workforce alignment, for like performance management as well. And that's just to name a few. It's a model or a framework with a set of relevant criteria, including abilities, knowledge and skills to achieve the task. So activities, also, you know, activities that you can successfully use to achieve the organizational objectives. And it's basically fundamentally a group of vital competencies necessary for success. So these can be broken down to apply to a specific job role, or all the staff, or a level of leadership, or a specific business function, or a particular task or a project, or a professional discipline, really. So yeah, think about competency modelling as, you know, a way that you can formulate a structure to measure like criteria against. So there's 3 areas to consider when you know, formulating your model. Although there's no like standardized list for a specific job role, they can be broken down into functional categories, core competencies, or functional competencies, or leadership competencies, sorry. So comprehensive leadership competency models are used alongside development programs within an organization, usually like a leadership sort of pathway. So it'll be measured against specific criteria. So, you know, and it can be more like a standardized process for an organization as well, that's used within, you know, within an organization to make it efficient and effective. Also to help people to be motivated to want to improve as well. So let's talk a little bit about the critical incident technique, and or critical incident method, it can be called as well. And it was developed by John Flanagan in the Second World War. And it's a systematic process that includes analysing and assessing a situation to determine actions, really, or, you know, behaviours that would lead to the best outcome for a given situation. So it can be used in various different ways, such as in descriptive interviews, or primarily to obtain qualitative information. So useful, you know, for some organisations, depending on what you're using it for. Bearing in mind that an incident is deemed to be critical when the actions taken contribute to effective or an efficient outcome, really. So thinking about the steps that you can actually follow when conducting a CIT, and these can follow sort of Gibbs reflective cycle. So Gibbs reflective cycle looks at, a description about what's happening, the current situation, feelings about what's going to happen, evaluation, description again, so reviewing it again to make sense of the current situation, then a conclusion, and then an action plan. And it's a circular motion going over and over and over. So yeah, reflective thinking, critical incident technique is about a reflective approach to improvement, really. And then you can look at the job diagnostic survey. I'm talking a little bit further about that on the next slide. So just let you know that was developed by Hackman and Oldham in 1975, and it was based on a previous model called the job characteristics model. And again, we'll come back onto that in a second. The method study is, which is subjecting work to a systematic critical scrutiny to make it more effective or more efficient. So it's really scrutinising the information. And the method was designed originally to analyse and improve manual, repetitive work practices. However, it has been useful in all activities now within the organisation, and it's got a couple of steps to it. So the steps is about selecting a specific activity, recording, and then examining it, developing a bit of a plan to improve, then installing that new method, and then maintaining it. Now, some people, or some organisations, sorry, might have the opportunity, the chance to test different methods. And if they do have that chance, they will run it through this process and test a couple of methods and then decide upon which one is best. I mean, most organisations don't really have that luxury, so we'll need to seriously consider different decision and options. And there's many methods that you can use for deciding on the best option as well. And we can come to that again in a minute. But moving back onto the job analysis, it's about compartmentalising and arranging the specific job into different work activities. And that can be broken down into looking at, the element, which is the focus on the smallest tasks within a work activity, and the task, the identified unit of work, so specific to an objective that links to a goal. And then, the duty is more about their responsibility, their authority, their role, looking then at the position, which is the activities basically that are required for them to do that role. Then looking at the job family, which is more about like the department in which they work. And then moving on to the occupation, which is the jobs that are combined to, form that person's, day-to-day duties and responsibilities and role. So analysing that person's job, and like maybe every year on an appraisal, and seeing, well, are you actually doing everything that was in your initial job description? I mean, usually people's job roles adapt and change and link to organisational vision and goals, and objectives will change. In most roles, they will adapt, and they will be, that'll be like more of a natural thing that they've now started doing more tasks within this or that, or having more responsibilities because they've got experience in that area. But it's important to be able to analyse a person's job and making sure that you're making, use, if you think about that person as a necessary resource, that you're utilising their capabilities. I've worked in a number of different organisations and industries, assessing people within their actual, in their job, in the actual vicinity of their workplace. And there's been so many people that aren't being utilised for things that they can do that isn't actually within their job role. So it's okay, it's not their duty to do something, but if they've got experience in, you know, a specific software system, but your IT specialist hasn't, then shouldn't you be utilising their capabilities to make the most of them? So that it's something that should be considered when looking about managing work analysis. And moving back onto what I've just said about options and decision making, there's plenty of different models, and I've spoke about these in previous live classes when talking about project management and problem solving. So you can look back at them in our playlist. But there's many different theoretical models that can be used, and Kurt Lewin's, I think, the force field analysis is a brilliant one, as it allows us to compare the for and against of an innovation or a change implementation. So, if you're thinking about how you can manage work analysis and how you can think about becoming more effective and efficient within your workplace, this looks at allocating scores for the for and against for different options. So, it's a good one to use, and a cost benefit analysis as well, weighing up the cost of implementing a new process or a new product or whatever to become more efficient or effective. But it's not just about cost, it's about benefits. And if then benefits are outweighing the cost, then it's worth, taking the time to implement that change. So yeah, talking back about, how do we make the decisions? And, it's different levels of decision making, as we've talked. And we've talked about, the tactical, strategic, and, having a different focus on the different decisions. But think about why are you making them decisions? Is it because the customers want more? Is it because, you have just received customer feedback surveys and it's saying that maybe customer service isn't good, so you know that you need to become more efficient and effective, so you need to implement change, and that might be changing staff rotas, so they're working 24 hours a day instead of 6 hours a day, so the customers are happy with the service that's being provided, and that might be, you might be able to also consider making that decision based on the quickest payback and investment. So you need to be more efficient and effective. So you are going to implement a new technology within the workplace, but you are going to pick the technology that's going to give you the quickest payback, because you can't afford within that financial year to be paying out for that technology and not getting the money back. So there's different methods of decision making and different reasons why you would choose one decision over another. One might just be not very challenging to implement. It's not really going to make that much of an impact on the team, so let's just go ahead and do it. Or it might be, again, like I mentioned before, that you've got on-site testing and you've decided from that on-site testing, maybe using the methods study, that one is better than the other. So yeah, you can also consider that when you're thinking about the managing the work analysis. Now, as part of this assignment particularly, and probably when you are managing work analysis as a whole anyway, and when you are presenting a case of how you can become more efficient or effective once you've, analysed the resources and capabilities of your department or your organisation at whatever level, you will probably need to be, and well, you will be needing to within this assignment, within Unit 515, if that's the reason why you're completing this, you will be needing to recommend solutions, and you usually do that by presenting a case. Now that could be in a report, it could be in a proposal, it could be in a live PowerPoint presentation to the whole team. There's a number of methods of presenting a case of information to recommend solutions, but pointing out that these are the key specifics that you will need when presenting the case. You will need to be defining the initial problem or providing the statistics or data that you've found that has meant that you need to make a change. And remembering that, data is raw, unorganized, unprocessed facts. Data is useless unless it's organized. When data is processed, organized, structures and presented and placed in a context to make me worthwhile, it becomes information. And in other words, information with meaning, information that you can make informed decisions on. So I wouldn't go over to my team and just provide them with a spreadsheet with lots of information on. I would clean that or lots of numerical data on. I would clean that data up, find, find some sort of pattern within that data and present that information to the team. And you do that by defining the problem. So the problem might be that, it might be that the staff retention has gone up by 30% this year. Reasons for needing a solution: to retain the staff, to minimize the time it takes management to train them, to save costs on, advertising for new members of staff, for example. And then thinking about the options and implications associated with each. So the options might be to, think about more bonuses for the staff, thinking about giving them incentives to stay for longer than a year, like promotion opportunities. It might even be that you're thinking about, maybe not hiring staff from a specific area and thinking about going outside of the field of expertise to train people from scratch. There's many different options, but the implications could be costs, could be time, could be, things that you need to be considering when you are recommending that case. Then the preferred recommended option and the rationale for that. So you're going to be stating why you think it's the best option, why you think that the other options wouldn't have worked, and making sure that the rationale is, is rock solid when you're recommending that solution. Making sure that you are pointing out the benefits or the expected benefits that could be derived from that specific option, and also making people aware, making sure everyone is aware the risks that are associated with this implementation, the costs that are associated with it, because people need to know. People don't need surprises. People need to know that you've done your research to be able to find out what them risks or costs associated with the recommended change based on that work analysis. So although, managing work analysis can be difficult to comprehend when you think about it as a whole, if you break it up into sections and consider firstly, why you are managing, why you're analysing the work in the first place, why are you analysing that work, what do you want to find, then breaking it down into the resources, the capabilities, and the different types of resources and capabilities, then breaking it down into the level of decisions and decision types, options available to improve, to become more efficient and effective, and remembering the definitions and the breakdowns of, effectiveness, efficiency and productivity, and then thinking about ways of improving and how you can present that case. Now, knowing this area of work can make your department, your organisation, so much more efficient, so much more effective, and flow in a better way. And making sure that you do this regularly, it will just make your organisation and you a better manager as well. So hopefully I have cleared information up on this section, and hopefully you've enjoyed this live class today. If anyone has any questions, as usual, you can contact me on my email, or you can contact our office via the details on our website. Thank you for watching today, and have a good day.